What does a meme about vaccine hesitancy have to do with a video of young adults self organizing by perceived IQ? And can anyone be a Liberty Dad? The answers to both of these may surprise you. So let's get to it. All right. Good morning and welcome to another episode of the Liberty Dad podcast, a discussion on politics and culture. If you're tuning in live, then I especially thank you for giving me your time so early. 7 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Rise and shine. Get to the day, folks. All right. Good morning to you, sir. Yes, this is a Wednesday wake up, Mr. Keith. And thank you again for tuning in. All right, so let's get into this. I like memes, sort of. I'm kind of old, so like there's a limit to it, but I can appreciate them. However, sometimes I want to fact check them, but I think the way here's my thing on social media, I don't think that they necessarily need to be fact checked by social media. That's absurd. But I do think that it's worth us being mindful of the memes. Still share them, that's fine. They don't Memes aren't meant to be 100% accurate. They're meant to have fun, make a point, maybe make a very serious point. And that's fine. I have no issues with that. I think that we need to be mindful of them so that we don't get too influenced by a meme because some of them come across as pretty legit in terms of the information that they're presenting. Like some of them are clearly just for fun, and I've seen fact checkers on Facebook and sort of on X, formerly known as Twitter. I've seen them get somewhat. They get the community notes occasionally, but it's not too bad. Facebook can be pretty bad sometimes. They fact check and they're like, well, "This meme isn't like that meme was sarcasm." Or that meme was meant to be a little bit fun, and we all knew that it wasn't 100% serious and accurate. Like it's kind of wild. But I'm gonna do that here, and hopefully, the way that I do it will present you with just another way to look at them, enjoy the meme, have a little fun with it. So we're keeping that element, but at the same time, walk away being more informed. Okay. And just how we should approach it. So let's pull this first meme up. All right, so there it is. And I might have to zoom in because it's the way they designed this one is stacked one on top of each other. So let me go ahead and zoom that in. And then I believe that will allow us to take a look at it. So we'll look at the top and then we will look at the bottom here. So the top one shows this graph, and this is this is a real graph. It says vaccine hesitancy in the US by education level. And we can see that it goes from left to right, high school or less, some college, a bachelor's degree, a master's degree, professional like a JD, and then you've got PhD. And the most interesting thing that stands out on this is that the PhD it shows the highest level of vaccine hesitancy. Okay, so this source came from Carnegie Mellon University. So this is a legitimate graph. Okay, there's no dispute there. Then we scroll down and we look and we'll zoom out just a wee bit. There we go. All right. So we get the whole thing in. And so then it takes that graph and it puts it into a bell shaped curve and it shows the people on the far left is like a Cro Magnon caveman. I don't want your mystery juice in my blood. And then in the middle, it's kind of got this stereotypical, you know what? Why do people keep using this meme of me? Like seriously, like, hey, look, doesn't that look like, look, I mean, see there. Okay, now I haven't shaved lately because I've been kind of lazy, but I mean that's kind of a picture of me, like with glasses and scruffy beard and then a bald head. So I don't know. And anyway, if you're gonna use this meme, like if you're gonna use this image, this person to kind of represent somebody that's like screaming and angry, throw a hat on for me, right? Just saying. Anyway, so it shows this person here who's like, super duper angry. Follow the science, trust the experts, take the vaccine now, or you are literally killing people, which is that's kind of accurate. People actually did almost say that verbatim. Like, people did act like that. So that's not really that's not really exaggeration there. And then it shows on the right-hand side, there's insufficient data to support your claims of safety and efficacy. And so, and it's this meme is like distribution of cognitive ability. And what it's basically showing is like, hey, you've got the PhDs here who have this high level of, this person is representative of a PhD over here. This person, is like, hey, there's just not that data's not there. I don't think your claim is legit. And then over here, it shows high school or less. So the idea being that, you're an uneducated Cro-Magnon, walk around with a club, me want woman. And then in the middle here, you've got the person that's like, screaming and angry and talking about how you're killing people. And then it shows, that represents supposedly the bachelor and master's group. So interesting meme. I have no, I mean, it's a nice little meme. Now this graph is like from 2021. Okay. So first and foremost, so this meme is actually, it was kind of like the meme that I did a while back when I kind of walked through it and was talking about it. It's portraying information that is quite old, but that's okay. But I dug in and I found an interesting video that talks about this graph. Now it doesn't talk about the meme portion below it, but it does talk about the graph because the graph did make its rounds when it first came out. And people were all like, oh, look, the PhDs, they're hesitant too. Like, so apparently it's not just a bunch of people that, are uneducated and don't know what they're talking about, so on and so forth. So let's watch a video here. And this video comes from, I'm not sure which news station, but some news station where they saw that the graph was going around and they decided to reach out to the authors of the study from which that graph comes from. So let's hear what they said in that video. All right, so we got everything going here. Perfect.
Skeptics are questioning the vaccine by pointing to a survey that found a high rate of hesitancy for those with a PhD.
CBS 17 digital reporter Jody McCrary is fact checking and digging deeper into why the author says some people used fake answers to cast doubt and throw off those results.
Nearly a quarter of PhDs who took the survey said they were hesitant, but that number doesn't give you the whole picture. This chart is making the rounds on social media. Among education levels, the group with the highest rate of hesitancy are those with PhD degrees. The study focused on 5 million people who took a Facebook survey from January to May, about 10,000 claiming to hold those degrees. I tracked down the author, and she says the numbers are right.
We still have a lot of confidence in the survey results.
But she says her work is being misrepresented online. Skeptics using those results to convince others to question the vaccine too. They miss the point that overall hesitancy went down.
I think there are people that can kind of take a data point and twist it around to mean something it doesn't mean, and that's unfortunate.
A few concerns about those results. They haven't been peer reviewed yet. People taking the survey were on the honor system with no way to make sure they actually have PhDs. And that group doesn't include doctors or nurses.
So it's not representative of the medical profession.
King says a review found people gave extreme answers in some categories, including education level, to throw off the numbers and cast doubt on the vaccine.
I mean, the responses actually seem like there was some sort of concerted effort.
While it was less than 1% of the total, it did have an effect.
It did make the hesitancy prevalence in the PhD group look higher than it really is.
My Story Online has a link to the full study. It explains just how far hesitancy dropped. For CBS 17 News, I'm Jody McCrary.
All right, so interesting video. Now there's a couple things in there that I thought were interesting. Now, why am I talking about a meme? Why does this matter? Because at the end of the day, whether it's a meme or a chart, because a lot of charts went around, right? This one isn't the fashion of a meme because it adds some comic value to it at the bottom. But the chart initially went around and lots of charts went around. And I think it's important that we understand some elements of the chart and, what we're looking at so that we know just what it's talking about. And I don't think you should make your decisions based on a graph. I don't think you should make your medical decisions based on a meme. Okay. I think you should make your medical decisions based on what you did before COVID. And before COVID, most people went to the doctor, they talked to the doctor, and then they left. And then they decided whether or not they agreed with their doctor. And a lot of people did not. I've been one of them where I went to the doctor and I didn't necessarily agree with what they said. We might remember this term, getting a second opinion. People did that all the time, right? So I don't think that this information should guide us in our decision making. Now, it's useful information to have a conversation. Maybe we want to debate online, and that's fine. And I think we should do that. But I think it's useful to understand some elements now. Now, one of the couple things they pointed out in that video that I thought were kind of interesting. One, they pointed out that this was an online uh, this information came from people taking a survey online. In my opinion, I would probably never base any decision on anything from an online survey because I don't know who is in them. I don't know why they're there. I mean, you could almost do an entire show on why that could be extremely misleading. Um, and they did point out, they said, we don't even know if these people actually had PhDs. Okay. And we're going to get to in a moment, I'm going to show you another video. And it's going to show you that even if they did have PhDs, we still want to be mindful what what the conclusion is. Whether all the PhDs were like, hey, whether there's a high degree of vaccine hesitancy or whether the skepticism was like really, really low. It doesn't really matter either way. Just because you have a PhD, we're going to see that. We're going to see that in just a moment. Let me try not to jump ahead of myself. But a couple of other interesting things about the video. The woman points out, she said, well, it's not representative of the medical community. So what? I mean, look, I get it. We go to the doctor, we expect the doctor to have answers, but we all know somebody that has went to the doctor and got bad answers. Prior to 2020, the third leading cause of death was medical errors. Okay. Medical errors. In other words, the medical community made a mistake. So it's possible that they don't get things right. And it's also possible that they're not always up on the latest information. I'll give you a quick story. My mom, when 2016 was dying of cancer. And we went to the doctor, and I had just done some random reading. And one of the things that I came across was the idea that a keto diet may, in some way, be helpful. Not necessarily like it was going to be a cure all, like that wasn't that kind of a question, and it wasn't that kind of an idea either. It was just like, hey, there may be some value here. If nothing else, maybe an improvement in the quality of life. So when we were at her cancer doctor, I asked him, I said, hey, I've read a few things that seem to suggest there may be some value in the keto diet. And he didn't really know. He just was like he said something. He was like, well, my concern would be, keto acidosis. And I don't want to get too deep into the details, but it was pretty clear that he didn't know. And that's okay. Like you can't know everything. So this idea that, well, it's not representative of the medical community. I mean, when has the medical community ever told you not to take a vaccine? Right? I don't. At any rate, the point here being, the medical community is the fact that it wasn't representative is a fair. It's fair for the woman to point out, but it's also fair for me to point out and say, well, it doesn't really matter as much because again, we are talking about a survey online. We also don't know the how well they're keeping up. There are people in the medical community, they're sharp, they're on it, they keep up with the latest and the greatest news, and it would be wise to listen to them. And then there are other people like they don't seem to, it seems like they just stopped learning after they got out of school. Like that's how it feels sometimes, right? And we've all encountered a doctor where you go to them and they prescribe something or they've taken you in a particular direction, and then a second doctor said, "No, I think that's incorrect." So sometimes they're just wrong. Possible that they're wrong. So that was kind of interesting. Either way, whether you're looking at a PhD, whether you're looking at what the PhD said, whether you're looking at what the medical community said, The reality is that is what they call an appeal to authority. So you shouldn't really just like it's your health. You should not be just following along and saying, okay, they said do this, I should do this. You should check into it and see if it makes sense to you. If it doesn't, get a second opinion, review the information yourself. But anyway, digressing here. It's not really what I wanted to get at. So we want to talk about this whole thing with PhDs. So I came across another video just recently. I'm not going to play the whole video. What I'm going to do is I'm going to play a clip that was presented on Twitter. I will link to the full video in the comments. The full video is like 12 minutes long. I encourage you to take a look at the full video, but for this purpose, we are just going to watch this clip, and then this clip has nothing to do with vaccines. This is a clip of 6 young people who have been brought together and told, order yourselves by IQ. So try to figure out who has the highest IQ and order yourself. And then they end up taking an IQ test, and then they get the results. So let's watch this video. I thought it was very interesting. Let's pull it up here. There we are. And I can only zoom in so much on this. Sorry, today a lot of the videos are um, they are portrait videos, so just the way it goes. All right.
I'm 21. I'm a high school graduate, and I work in the Marine Corps.
I'm 30 years old. I have my PhD in cancer biology, and I work in a biotech industry. Grad school, I went to University of South Carolina, and undergrad, I went to University of Florida. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 2, me, I don't know. PhD, cancer biology scientist. I work in a biotech company. We make COVID-19 testing kits, stuff like that. And then 6. It has nothing to do with your background. I don't think you really have the highest EQ out of all of us. Tyler, he ranked last for me personally because the way he carries himself. He was ranking intelligence based on his point of view and not taking in other people's point of views.
So number 1 is Raymond. Number 2 would be Haley. Number 3 will be Tyler, and number 4 would be Shada. Number 5 is Sean, and number 6 is Maria.
Okay. I'm gonna stop it right here. Well, I guess we'll play it again. So this was kind of interesting because the internet roasted this young woman. Like literally, because they called her smug and arrogant, which if you watch the whole video, it was definitely there. Like this particular video kind of clips it, so it makes her seem a little bit more smug than she was in the actual video, because it basically like clips out all the smug parts and puts them together in one little 1-minute clip. So this was very interesting because I I watched this video the other day and I thought what I thought was interesting was one, I'm not sure that it's hard to tell in this clip that I got, but I'm not sure that they all actually understood what IQ was. I know this young woman starts talking about EQ, and I got a video for EQ. We're going to talk about that. I think. Let me see. Trying to decide if that really fits in or not. But anyway, so how does this relate to the meme? Well, if we go back to the meme here, pull that back up. All right. And we look at this, we say PhDs were vaccine hesitant, like to the rate of 24%. And the next highest, the next level, the next group that was in the ranking of vaccine hesitancy was those with high school or less. So what we just saw in the video, she seemed to be, and it definitely is clear in the longer video, she seemed to be unaware of the limitations of having a PhD, right? Like she labeled herself number 2, and I think she only did that because there was the Asian guy, and they don't play it in this 1-minute clip that I showed you, but the Asian guy was a first generation, and he went to Harvard or something like that. And so they kind of used all of those to kind of say, oh, you must be smart because you're Asian, you went to Harvard, you're first generation, immigrant, like that has all the makings of somebody with a high IQ. And it turned out he actually was number 1. So they were kind of accurate in that sense. But I think if it were not for the Asian guy, she would have labeled herself number 1, 100%. And actually, I would go as far as to argue that if it had been an Asian woman or a young Asian girl, she probably would have ranked herself over the young girl. Probably. I'm guessing there. But at any rate, so she puts herself at number 2, and they're supposed to be ranking themselves by IQ, okay? And the way that the way that they ordered themselves is they basically all went down the line and they said, "You're 1, you're 2, you're 3, you're 4," so on and so forth. And they did that, and then they said, "All right, who got the most 1s? Who got the most 2s?" So on. And I think all of them, except for the more flamboyant looking guy who happens to be an artist, he was the only one to rank himself at 6, I believe, and he ranked the Marine guy right above him. But everybody else ranked the Marine guy at number 6. And then he turned out to be number 3, honestly. And he was only a few points from the Asian guy because the Asian guy was like 136 and he was like 131, something like that. So it wasn't very far away from him anyway. So it was a very interesting video. But what kind of stood out to me when I saw this graph, and I remember this graph because I remember back in 2021 when it went floating around, and then when I saw the corresponding part below it where they kind of reformulate what it's saying, I thought it was interesting because in this video, it's clear to me that people rank the idea of having a PhD as you must be smart, you must be intelligent. And so, therefore, because you're intelligent, then what you say must be true. And the problem with that is that I've met a lot of people that have great education that I'm not sure how they got it because I'm like, maybe you were good at testing. I'm not really sure. I don't want to say they're dumb, but the way they came across, and maybe that's it. Maybe that's maybe that's the bigger thing. Maybe when it comes to certain material, they're really sharp, but then when it comes to communicating ideas and thoughts, maybe they're not so good. And it's possible with this young woman that maybe her ability to communicate ideas was pretty low because she's like PhD, cancer biology, blah blah blah. And she's, her like the way that she's carrying herself, which is funny because she criticized the Marine for the way he carried himself. He stood there and he was just like, "Yep, this is what I think. I think this, blah blah blah." Like he didn't really display a whole lot of body language that kind of said condescending, whereas she did. So I thought that was kind of interesting. But the point here, the whole point that I'm all these ramblings that I'm making here is that when we see a chart like this and it says all these PhDs said this, we should still be skeptical because just because you're a PhD doesn't mean that you have a high IQ as was shown in the video. And I'm not trying to dog on the young lady. It means that you don't have a high IQ. It means that you have managed to accomplish the required work in order to become a PhD. And just because you may be doing certain things in like she might be doing some really great work. I don't know what she does, but she might be really doing some really great work in the area of cancer biology. Very possible. And so her PhD may have been very well earned and she may be doing very great work, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you have a high IQ. And more importantly, it doesn't necessarily mean that on the matter of something unrelated, that you are making a good decision. So maybe she would have been hesitant, maybe she wouldn't. My guess is that she wouldn't have been hesitant. But the idea is that they're entirely separate things. The reasons that I might decide to get a vaccine may or may not be built on good, solid foundation of ideas. And it doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter which category you fall in here. You could be somebody who's got high school education or less, and you could potentially make a better decision than a PhD in a particular area. And that goes for vaccines or anything else. So that's ultimately what I wanted to talk about with this is just kind of point out like just because someone has a PhD doesn't give them any more weight. We need to hear the argument that they're making, whether it's for vaccines or whether it's against vaccines. Doesn't really matter. We need to hear the argument and we need to understand Why is it that they made their decision? Because as I pointed out before, very intelligent people can sometimes make very foolish decisions. It happens all the time, right? And we probably all know somebody. I knew a guy one time. I met a guy. I didn't really know him. I met a guy one time, very, very smart guy, very smart, but he was a bit arrogant. And, we were drinking. And it was fun. It was fun to talk to him. But I remember talking to some friends later who were also very smart. And they said, yeah, that guy is too smart for his own good. That's really all they said. But it was clear that I understood what it meant. Like, he was very sharp in certain areas, but not so good in other areas. Now, as it turned out in the video, I just want to point this out. The young woman who ranked him the least in the actual long video, she asked him, she says, I don't remember what he did in the Marines, but she said, do you do you think that anybody can do your job? And he said, no. My job requires a certain level of intellect and ability to think critically and problem solve. And he said, not everybody has that. And you could kind of see the look on her face. She was kind of like, for real. And I think a lot of these young people, they just kind of thought, oh, military must mean you're not very smart. But what they missed, and I picked up on because I'm in the military, he mentioned having a 94 on his ASVAB test. So even though he didn't go to college, he didn't have a PhD or a master's or even a bachelor's, even though he didn't have those, he got a 94 on his ASVAB. That is really high. I remember meeting a guy when I was going to basic training, and the guy was like, "Yeah, I got a 99 on my ASVAB." We're like, "Whatever." Like nobody, like that was one of those like you hear that some guy somewhere got a 99, but you never meet him because there's so few of them, right? And so we were all skeptical. We were like, whatever. And then he like literally showed us his paperwork. He's like, and he literally had a 99. I can't remember if that's the highest you can get. It's either 100 or 99. I want to say it was 99, but it's been so long, I just don't remember. But at any rate, it's either the highest you could get or 1 point below the highest you could get, I believe. So he got a 99 and we're like, "Well, what are you doing?" And he's like, "I'm going to the Navy to be like a nuclear physicist or something like that." So it was very, very, so when he said, "I have a 94," the fact that he only had a high school degree, didn't matter to me anymore because I reckon I'm like, "All right, if you get a 94 on your ASVAB, you are probably pretty smart." Like I can't imagine a situation where you're going to get a 94 and you're not a relatively smart guy. Also, I felt he was a bit humble. Um, and let's see, where are we? 7:30? I think we can. Nah, we're gonna skip the EQ video, but they did a lot of talking about EQ, emotional quotient, and I'm not sure that they understood that either, nor were they very good at demonstrating it. EQ is just basically how well you understand your own emotions and how well you can recognize the emotions of others. And then it goes into, if you go into a little bit more, you'll find out that people that have a very high EQ are able to not only recognize their emotional state, but manage it as well. And then they can recognize the emotional state of others and then help manage that with other people. So it's kind of like you can, if you've got a high EQ, you're probably pretty good at mediating between two parties who are quarreling. So that's basically what that is. Ultimately, I don't think that they demonstrated a lot of EQ. I don't think they understood necessarily what IQ was. And despite the fact that the young lady, I think two of them actually had um, PhD. I think it was the Asian man and the woman in red pants. They both had PhDs from Ivy League schools, I believe. I believe both of them went to an Ivy League school. Um, and he seemed to be more in line, more humble, I guess is the word I would use. Whereas the rest of them, I think they misunderstood a lot about the world. So when we see these kind of things, be skeptical for any number of reasons. Number one, like, this is not how we should be making our medical decisions in the first place. Like, that would just be absurd to go, oh, well, this graph said. That's just crazy. And I don't think people are doing it anyway, but I think a lot of people present it as if they want to try to convince you to make a decision based on what this graph says. That's not how reality works. All right. So let's move on let's move on to something a little bit more interesting that's not as dry and boring as, criticizing a meme, which, again, memes are fun and they can tell you things. I just don't think that we should approach them as if they're going to really convince people of much of anything. And we shouldn't probably be convinced ourselves just because we saw a meme. Anyway, so what does it mean to be a Liberty Dad? Uh, so I want to share another video, actually two videos. So one comes from a content creator. His name is Jason Hibbs. He has he does content creation with woodworking, and it was one of the this video is one of his shorts on YouTube. He's got a much longer video where he walks through what he builds, and it was like one of the very first videos that got me interested in woodworking. And so we're going to talk a little bit um, about what it means to be a Liberty Dad. Can anybody be a Liberty Dad? Like, how does that work? We're gonna dive right into it. So let's pull this video up, and this is a 1 minute clip. I'm just gonna show it to you, and we're gonna have a little conversation here. Sorry about all the videos that are portrait. That's the way it goes. All right. So that's the end of that video. So he built this fire pit, and it's probably pretty friggin' heavy because it's made of concrete. And he goes through in his actual video, he goes through all the different things that he did, and you can see that he took wood and he made circular templates for the inside and the outside so that they could so that he would have like that interior area to put in the concrete. Now, this is technically not a woodworking project, but he used his woodworking skills to build the frame that would hold all of the concrete. So this is one of the very first videos that I saw that really just kind of got me interested in woodworking because I was like, wow, this is a really cool video. And what I liked about it, he made these videos and he was talking, and he narrates, so he does a narrating type podcast, and so he'll videotape himself doing these things and then narrate it along the way, and then he shows you at the end, and he'll have like all the links to all the tools that he used, and the materials and whatnot. So I just found it really, really amazing. I was like, wow, that's a really cool fireplace. And what does that have to do with being a Liberty Dad? Well, this was some time ago, and I think it was during COVID. So my son had already kind of been born, and I'd kind of already had a podcast going. And I saw this video, and I was like, man, that looks like kind of like fun. So then I started watching a couple of his other videos, and I was like, this woodworking thing looks really, really fun. Like I want to do this now. So I started doing smaller projects, like, all right, I'm going to do some things here and there. And I didn't have a large selection of tools. I had a fair amount, but not a large selection. So I started doing some things that I could do. One of the things that I did was I built a fence in our backyard. I built it mostly from scratch, and I had a lot of fun doing that. And of course, my son now he's at this time he's probably like 1 years old, so he can't really help. He can't do anything. Like he maybe will come outside and look at me and say gaga goo goo whatever. But as time went on, I started watching more videos. I started getting into it, and I was like, man, this is really fun. And then I started realizing that I'm on the computer all the time. My job requires me to automate things. And so I write a lot of code. And so I'm constantly on the computer. And then I'm on the computer for social media, and I'm on the computer for my podcast. So I'm just on the computer a lot. So woodworking gave me this way to get out and touch grass, as they say. But even more than that, it gave me an opportunity to start bonding with my son. And so I would start letting him play with some of the tools that were acceptable, like maybe a tape measure or something like that, or, and we did it based on, his age and, what we understood his capability to be. So, like to this day, he's almost 5 and he's not allowed to touch a table saw. Just because I don't feel that he is ready to even touch the table saw, like not turn it on, nothing. So he doesn't get to touch it. But I did give him an old corded drill, and he uses the corded drill on his own table or workbench. He has a workbench that I built. He actually has a workbench and I don't. Crazy. Um, so we get involved in these projects, right? So let me show you this other video of my son helping me with a project. I'm very proud of this. All right. So there he is. And he's now has my cordless drill. So let's see what he's up to. All right. This is like a year and a half ago.
Almost got it.
He almost got it, he said. So I built this mailbox, and then I had to install the whole mailbox holder stand. Then I had to
All right, that's good.
mailbox
Do the next one.
on top of it, and he wanted to help. So I pre-drilled the holes, and then I just stuck them in there just enough so that they would stay, and then let him at it. As you can see, him and I. All right. So that's the video there. All right, it'll bring me back up big. All right. So what does that have to do with being a Liberty Dad? So the idea of Liberty Dad is to prepare for tomorrow's conversation by how we engage today. Kind of my tagline. I think I even have that. Um, where is it? I don't think I can show it to you, but yeah, it's in the background. Anyway, so it's about being a Liberty Dad is, my way of saying, how am I going to prepare to be a long-term dad, right? What am I doing? Well, a lot of that is how we engage today. So I bring him out and I let him enjoy and participate in the things that I do. I we of course do things that he likes. We were playing video games last night. He likes video games, of course, like any little boy. So we were playing video games last night. Sometimes we'll go and we'll play some of his little board games that he has. Sometimes we'll go and play Legos or blocks. He's got all kind of different toys. Sometimes I get down on the floor with him and we play with his toys that are meant for his age. And the whole purpose of this is, one, I'm having fun with him, obviously. But number two, I want to enjoy the time with him now so that later when he gets to be older, he'll want to enjoy time with me. And I treat him now in a way that will make future him want to engage with me. So the way that I've described this in the past is I say something like, we are going to be teaching him everything about the world for a while. And then eventually he's going to start getting out and he's going to start hearing other things. And one day he may go to college and he'll come back and he'll say, well, Dad, I know that you raised me to believe this, but I just heard this new idea. Maybe he'll come back and he'll say, Dad, I know that you think that communism is a bad thing, but here's what I learned in school. And then I'm going to have to say, get out. No, I'm just kidding. I'm not going to do that. But the idea is that he will want to have a conversation with me. He won't be intimidated. He won't be afraid to have a conversation with me because he'll know that even if we disagree, it's going to come from a place where I'm considerate of his ideas. I'm considerate to what he is now learning or what he is thinking. And I think this is very critical, I think, for parents, but I think it's actually critical for anyone. So while you may not be a man, so therefore can't be a Liberty Dad, and maybe you don't have kids, so that would also prevent you from being a Liberty Dad. You could simply be a Liberty friend. You could be a Liberty mom. You could be a Liberty anything, right? The idea should transcend the name Liberty Dad. I just gave that to me just to have something kind of catchy. but you can be a Liberty anything, a Liberty friend, a Liberty peer, whatever, by simply doing the same thing. Now, I'm heavily involved in Libertarian Party, libertarian politics, talk about liberty all the time. My wife is like, "Oh, good Lord, could you find something else to talk about?" Right? Like sometimes that's kind of how she feels. And, but at the same time, it's worth making sure that you take time to consider somebody else. What are they involved in? What do they enjoy? Talk about what they enjoy from time to time. Because if you don't, then why would they want to be interested in what you have to say? So make sure that you spend time talking with people about things that they're interested in. So I get down, like my son isn't, he's almost 5. He doesn't care about politics, nor does he know much about them. I mean, he accompanies me to the different events that we go to, but he doesn't really know what's going on. He's interested in, can I watch TV on your phone? Like that's his bigger interest. And so I make sure to make time to, I carve out time so that him and I can go and do things, live in the real world. Because at the end of the day, politics, none of it really matters. I mean, it does, but it doesn't. Because at the end of the day, I spend a lot of time unrelated to politics with my family. And politics has nothing to do with our family. When I'm hanging out with friends, yeah, we'll argue about politics sometimes, but we spend a lot of time talking about other things. Maybe they'll talk about what's going on at the job. Hey, man, my boss has been really tough on me lately, and I'm stressed out because this project's behind. Blah blah blah. We need to have those conversations. So if you want to be a Liberty friend, or if you want to be a Liberty dad or a Liberty mom, right? You can easily do so. The idea is more about how you engage today so that people will want to engage with you tomorrow. And if you're only engaging in politics, then as long as they're engaging in politics, then yeah, they'll want to engage with you. But if they're not so interested in it, then you got to take a break. You got to take a breath. You got to figure out what's interesting. Go find a hobby and get people involved in that. My woodworking hobby that I'm doing, and hopefully it grows, it's not just for me, and it's not just between me and my son. I had a friend come over one day, it was a Sunday, and him and he wants to do some stuff with voiceover recording, and he wanted to build a sound panel. And I have sound, you can't see them, but I have sound panels on my wall that I built. And I was like, yeah, man, I can help you out. So he came over and we built a sound panel together. So I was able to use his hobby just to do a friend thing, right? We didn't talk about politics. We didn't talk about liberty. We just had a good time. We got out all the tools. We chopped up some wood, screwed it all together, covered it up, did all these things, and we just had a good time. And I think these are the kind of things that we should be remembering to do. Take a break from politics and arguing and debating and all this stuff, and go spend time with friends. Go find a hobby so that you can enjoy that hobby with friends. It doesn't have to be woodworking. It could be fishing. It could be a book club. It could be any number of things. But I encourage you to get out there, find things in the world to do, and then find ways to involve other people. You'll be better for it, and so will they. And then when it comes time to talk about politics, to talk about your ideas, they're going to be a little bit more welcoming because, hey, why not? We're friends. We've been hanging out. We do all these other things. I'll let him or her rant about this thing for a while. So to answer the question, can anybody be a Liberty dad? I mean, strictly speaking, I'm the one and true Liberty dad. Okay. I'm just saying. I got the name first. I got the logo. I even have a crayon when I took my son to Crayola, and they let you make a crayon and put your name on it. I have one, a yellow one that says Liberty Dad. Like, if you don't have all that, like, you can't be the Liberty Dad, like the one true Liberty Dad. I'm the one true Liberty Dad. What? Can anybody be a Liberty Dad? Absolutely. Can you be a Liberty Mom? Absolutely. And if neither of those two fit, you can be a Liberty friend. So be that. Get out, go get a hobby, find something to do that's fun, that takes your mind off the craziness of the world, and then go involve some friends. And you too can be a Liberty Dad, and you can you can be mindful you can prepare for tomorrow's conversation by the way that you're engaging today. All right. Hope that you enjoyed this morning's show. Be sure to catch me every morning, Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. Eastern. Um, I'm gonna do my best to have an informed discussion on politics and culture. Just kind of give you my ramblings. And as we go along, hopefully I get better and better at it. Feel free to drop comments in there and let me know how I'm doing. Like I get it. Sometimes I'm a little rambly. It's okay. Rambly of a word? I made it a word. It's a word today. Sometimes that happens. It's okay. Drop a line in there and be like, DL, I like the content, but I think you were just going too far onto it. Or, hey, you had too many videos, whatever. Give me some feedback. Because if you're going to spend the time to watch me or to listen to me when I get this going on the audio format, then I want to make sure that I am doing my best to uh, so that you are getting the most out of it. I want to make sure that I'm being mindful of your time. So let me know how things are going. You can also join me on Sundays nights, 7 p.m. with my co-host, Susan Hogarth. We're going to look across the vast tyranny that's here in the United States, and we're going to figure out what in the world is happening with the Libertarian Party at the state and local level. And then we're going to report that back to you so that you can be invigorated by what's happening. You can be excited about maybe trying something out in your own affiliate. Be sure, again, do all the proper audience actions. Subscribe to my YouTube channel over at youtube.libertydad.com. You can also subscribe rumble.libertydad.com. Either one or both. I'll take both. But go there. Again, youtube.libertydad.com, rumble.libertydad.com. And if you want to follow me on social media, you can. Liberty Dad on Facebook. Not really on there too often. Liberty Dad Pod on Twitter, or just email me, libertydadpodcast@gmail.com. And remember, if you're a champion of people, your business is people and your product is liberty. I want you to have a great week. Catch you tomorrow. But for now,